I'm not happy.
I don't need Elizabeth Warren or the government giving away my money.
Calling Mike Bloomberg an oligarch has implications in this country that I think are unfair and unreasonable.
I care. That's it.
Makes you think of some rich person who got their money off of oil in Russia, who's taking advantage of a broken and dysfunctional system.
Bernie Sanders saying, the country's corrupt, our system's corrupt. Be careful about that language, Bernie. You know, be careful.
Oh, well, I'm sorry.
Now witness the firepower of this fully armed and operational battle station.
I have not worked this conversation.
Hey everybody, welcome to the show. Around the nation, Waldorf Nation. I like it just fine. What are you talking about? How do you like that, boy? How do you like that? Got another show. It's Wednesday. It's hump day. Half the week's over. But don't worry, we've got plenty of stories, of course, to talk about. Always lots of fun stuff. We got a grifter fight. On the conservatives. Oh, yummy when conservatives eat their own. Love it. That's fun and ridiculous. We're going to talk about that. Of course, it's later in the show. We got Kayleigh McEnany coming back, rearing her head, poking out her head out into public, I guess, again, out of the deep, dank hole that she was previously in, to come and talk about how there was never any crises under Trump. Oh, that's fun. That's real fun. And then, of course, we're going to talk about rental help. We got Erik Prince cashing in on people leaving Afghanistan. Yep, Erik Prince is back. And so we're going to talk about that. Lots of interesting stuff here. A little bit of a mix. So for those of you, by the way, I know y'all love my intro stuff. I need to work on more of them. So I'm working on getting some more of those put together. So, you know, because I've been playing the last couple, like, too many times now. Y'all are quoting it back to me. So I'm going to, like, have to figure out how to get a couple more in there. And so I started the process earlier today and working on it. And hopefully I'll have more soon. So, because I love putting those together. Because first of all, I know you all enjoy them, and so I enjoy doing them. I enjoy making them, and it's fun. It's fun. So yeah, that's something that I'm currently working on. Also, things that I'm working on, obviously making the show better and doing better and getting my content out there, which apparently did not work last night because I had a little bit of a sound error where the CIA somehow took away the sound over out of one of my clips. So I had to go and fix that. CIA? Or was it Debbie Wasserman Schultz came in, you know, she did it. She did it. She messed it up. Or the Trump supporters. I don't know. Somebody there. I was attacked. They came after and they hacked my system and they took away my sound. Or I just forgot to hit the export audio button. Whatever. I mean, either it was an attack or it was me fucking up. But nonetheless, that video has been fixed. Mike Pillow hacked you. Yeah, the Cyber Ninja. By the way, that was the Cyber Ninjas. It was on the Cyber Ninja story. So, oh, interesting. There's a new conspiracy attacked by the it was attacked by the ninjas. Very, very bad. All right, anyway. I'm being absolutely ridiculous. And I should probably not do that. Hello, everybody. Like and share the stream, please. In fact, I'm going to do that right now. I'm going to share the stream on the Twitter platforms. So whatever platform that you're on, please share. Very important that you do so. Helps us out. I keep hearing all the time that I'm a bit underrated. So it's up to you to fix that. So help me fix that. Help me grow. Get bigger. By the way, tomorrow going to be a lot of fun. I'm going to be going on Ravana's stream. I'm going to be on Reactions with the Twitch streamer Ravana, as I said. She's based. That's going to be a lot of fun. We're going to play a game called Fake News. So I'm really looking forward to that. That's going to be a lot of fun. So tune in actually right after this stream tomorrow. And I'll give you another reminder tomorrow as well. By the way, speaking of based streamers, I just want to give a shout out to Christina, who is in the chat right now. Everybody follow her channel, Christina with an H and 2 M's. Christina, not Christina, but Christina. Go follow her channel. She's doing some good work over there, especially if you like cosplays and politics as well, but mostly cosplays and fun stuff like that. So you're looking for a little bit of a, little bit of an escape from some of the politics and stuff, definitely check her out. Okay. Christina, which is channel about electricity. No, okay, just going back, like, the reason you got to make that distinction is some people, Jake Huger, tend to say names incorrectly, tend to butcher names, which, by the way, Glass House, all right, with mispronunciations, especially when it comes to names. Well, like, it's got to do a correction. Doing a correction here. And making sure the right people get, the right shout-outs. Okay. So, that said, did we just get an indisputable raid here on Twitch? Did we? Or did we get it from YouTube? Well, those of you coming over here from the YouTube channel on the YouTube side, welcome to the stream. We're going to have fun today. And we're going to start out with Kayleigh McEnany. Okay. Unofficial YT raid, maybe. Well, welcome, raiders from Indisputable. By the way, Rashad Ritchie's killing it over there. So props to him, and thank you for for his viewers to come over and join me for the next hour. I really do appreciate it. Hey, it's in the name, Indisputable. Indisputable. All right. Indisputable rated to the Surfs TV. Surfs are good too. Surfs are based. So that's always a good raid. Lance definitely deserves a follow as well. All right. Anyway, like I said. Former Trump White House Press Secretary Kayleigh McEnany recently popped out of her hold or wherever she was hiding and talked to Fox News and said that unlike Biden's presidency, Trump's tenure in office was wonderful and absolutely crisis-free. So this is what happened when she talked to Jesse Waters.
You got open borders, you got crime, you got gas prices, This is just a nasty mix of things that a lot of this stuff didn't need to happen.
Right. We are 8 months into a Biden presidency, Jesse. Wrap your head around that. We still have 3 years and 4 months left. Look, when President Trump was president, you didn't see crisis after crisis. You just didn't see it. I shudder to think about what COVID would have been like under Joe Biden. We've seen Afghanistan blow up, crime in the streets, you named it all. What would COVID have been like? Because I was in the White House when it was pretty scary times. We weren't sure if we'd have enough ventilators, but we were able to produce it with the private sector. I watched President Trump oversee a vaccine in record time, produce 4 working therapeutics. Do you think Joe Biden could have done any of that? The answer is absolutely not. The guy was 5 hours and 20 minutes late to his speech today.
Wow, crisis. What are you talking about? The Trump presidency was absolutely perfect. There was no crisis. Nothing ever went wrong. Everything was fantastic. Unlike, what's going on now with the crime and oh my God. You know, the most amazing thing about that video is how comfortable Kayleigh McEnany is at lying to people. I mean, really, lying to everybody's face, and it's basically as natural to her as breathing. No hesitation. Oh, no crisis. What are you talking about? No crisis ever happened under Donald Trump. No, everything was fantastic. History might have a few problems with that. Actual history, not revisionist history, which is what we're seeing right now from Kayleigh McEnany. So, in fact, let's go over some of the crises. Obviously, the first one is COVID. You know, the thing that we're still dealing with right now. Look, I'm not saying Donald Trump is to blame for the existence of COVID. No, of course not. Only an insane person would blame a president for, the existence of a virus. Oh, wait, you know who's doing that? Right wing. They're actually blaming Biden and Fauci and all that stuff. Okay, well, anyway, like I said, only crazy people. But for us sane people, we realize that the actions of the Trump administration during the coronavirus actually did make the coronavirus worse than it had to be, which is essentially her point. But again, this is projection coming from her. It's amazing. It's okay. Anyway, so let's go over some of the missteps from the Trump administration on COVID. And this is just on COVID, okay? In May 2018, the Trump administration had disbanded the White House pandemic response team. They were studying novel coronaviruses. In July of 2019, the CDC, epidemiologists embedded in China's disease control agency, had left the post, and the Trump administration eliminated that role. So, no longer somebody in China to go and track possible infectious diseases coming out of China. All of those actions left the government vastly unprepared for a major pandemic, which just happened to coincide. Unlucky for us. In fact, in an October 2019 Department of Health and Human Services 2019 influenza pandemic simulation report, so they do these simulations and they do the reports and they basically gauge the country's readiness for a pandemic. Well, they found that, quote, currently there are insufficient funding sources designated for the federal government to use in response to a severe influenza pandemic. Oops. Then, of course, there's the downplaying of the virus for months, while people in the administration, by the way, were sounding the alarm privately to Donald Trump, and even Donald Trump himself had privately sounded the alarm and was going, oh my God, well, this is terrible, but at the same time, I don't want to create a panic, so I'm just gonna downplay, but this thing is actually serious. In fact, here's a memo from Trump trade advisor Peter Navarro saying, quote, the lack of immune protection or an existing cure or vaccine would leave Americans defenseless in the case of a full-blown coronavirus outbreak on U.S. soil. This lack of protection elevates the risk of the coronavirus evolving into a full-blown pandemic, imperiling the lives of millions of Americans. Then, of course, there was a resistance to masking. Donald Trump, his administration wasn't pushing masks. Trump himself wasn't wearing masks. Then, of course, there was Jared Kushner early on telling states to basically fight it out with each other for things like ventilators and PPE. Hey, you guys, you're on your own. The federal government is not going to do a goddamn thing about this at all. And so they effectively, again, fought over things while people were dying. And so COVID, that's a big crisis. Now, that's not the only crisis. There was plenty of others. In fact, again, you had ISIS in the Middle East. That was a bit of a crisis. It was a foreign policy crisis. You had the Syrian civil war that we were still mixed up in. Plus, of course, you had the Capitol riots on January 6th, most recent crisis, other than COVID. And of course, those were spurred on by Donald Trump and a lot of Republican people around Donald Trump, Rudy Giuliani, Mo Brooks, a lot of these Newsmax pundits and all that. And so those were disasters. But then, of course, you had other disasters. Puerto Rico, for example, hit by Hurricane Maria. Hurricane Maria destroyed the power grid of the island, effectively destroying it, okay? Leaving millions without electricity in the Commonwealth of the United States. That is something they are American citizens that live there. So this is something that we're actually supposed to do something about. We're supposed to help these people. That hurricane caused about $90 billion in damage. And yet the Trump administration's response to this had been incredibly slow and ineffective. There's a lot of criticism there. In fact, there was a recent 2021 Inspector General investigation about this. And it found that the Trump administration, and there's a reason why this was slow and ineffective. Apparently, the administration had erected bureaucratic hurdles to stall the $20 billion in hurricane relief in Puerto Rico. The Washington Post reported that Trump told his staff that he did not want a single dollar of relief going to Puerto Rico, instead pressing for the money to go to Florida and Texas. So no money for the American citizens in Puerto Rico, not $1, because they're not really Americans, but they are American citizens. They actually are. But then, of course, you go back to the rhetoric of, oh, well, they're just lazy and they're not going to help themselves. They should be helping themselves. No, it is your job as a government to help states afflicted by disaster. But here's the problem. Puerto Rico, well, what's different from Puerto Rico and Texas and Florida? Well, Puerto Rico, it's an island nation, of course. It was surrounded by water, big, wet water, very wet. Nobody knows that, but it's an island surrounded by water, big water, ocean water. Oh, okay, yes, that is one problem there with Puerto Rico, but that wasn't the main problem. That wasn't the main reason. No, because it's an island filled with brown people. And Donald Trump doesn't give a damn about brown people. And we know that. Not only that, but the Trump administration subsequently obstructed the efforts of the Department of Housing and Urban Development Inspector General to investigate those delays in federal aid. So essentially, doing a cover-up. Great. Plus, there was that weird $300 million contract with Whitefish Energy, a small Montana-based company with only 2 full-time employees, who were sent to repair that power grid, which ended up being a gigantic corruption scandal, followed by, of course, many more corruption scandals. In total, Trump himself had over 3,700 conflicts of interest, one of the most corrupt administrations ever in the history of the United States. Plus, you had racial tensions, you had Charlottesville, you had the Nazis, the neo-Nazis that were marching, saying the Jews will not replace us, and the ensuing violence on that. You had police brutality, the death of George Floyd, which became a rally point against police brutality, which was met by overwhelming police presence, thanks, of course, to Trump's involvement, saying and personally directing the Department of Justice to target peaceful Black Lives Matter protesters. Not only that, but there is and was an immigration crisis, thanks to refugees, of course, fleeing conditions in Central America as a result of the drug war. Donald Trump, of course, could have done something about that. But understand that Trump's focus was not clearing the backlog of immigration judges or cases, by appointing more immigration judges to determine if people coming from Central America were eligible for asylum, which we have to do under international law. No, his focus, the Trump administration's focus, was on building that stupid goddamn wall, which of course wouldn't have fixed the situation, as ladders exist and shovels to get under it. But at the same time, wasting time and doing these ideas that just would make the situation worse, as we were not actually tackling the roots of the problem. And that's the thing about Trump. No, you can't blame him for every single goddamn issue, understand. But his response, you absolutely can blame him on, because it made the situations, it made these crises worse than what they actually needed to be. And why? It's because Donald Trump is a clown, he's an unserious person, and more importantly, only had very simple solutions to very complex problems. And of course, the world does not work that way. Anybody selling you a simple solution to a complex problem, such as, of course, immigration, is selling you snake oil. They are not being honest with you. They are using you. I mean, and of course, the Trump administration was filled with executive turnover. He went through about 6 different national security advisors in just 4 years. And I don't even know how many communications directors he's had. He has Spicy, Jason Miller, Michael Dubke, Scaramucci for like 10 freaking days. Hope Hicks, Sarah Huckabee Sanders. And then, of course, we get back to Kayleigh McEnany. You know, apparently she still thinks that she has that job because her role right now is still kissing Donald Trump's ass. And there's more, of course. There's more disasters every day. Again, I could spend all day talking about the disasters and the scandals, big and small, during the Trump administration. But, and look, I do not blame anyone for not remembering half the things that happened during those long 4 years, because understand, it was a new dumpster fire every single day, and there's only so much the human brain can handle. But I think I've made my point quite clear and really illustrated to you why McEnany is a total liar. She is absolutely gaslighting everybody, and it is sad that the people still take her, that there are people out there that still take her seriously and actually give her a platform like on Fox News. Memory full, indeed. And I think a lot of us just wanted to flush the last 4 years, you know, down the toilet where it belongs.
Dumps. Big, massive dumps.
All right. And again, that's just crisis. She's talking about crisis. All right. Now I'm actually going to talk about a crisis and how somebody's trying to capitalize on it. The most terrible people. The most terrible people. Yes, and I even, you know what? There's another thing, of course. There's the immigration camps. The putting the kids in cages. And that situation, sadly, hasn't gotten that much better either. Oof, man. All right. Anyway. Again, I tell you, I could spend all day on this. As desperate Americans and Afghan civilians attempt to evacuate the country following the takeover of the Taliban, Erik Prince, the notorious Blackwater founder, has jumped in to try to not help, but to help himself. Because, of course. Now, Prince, according to a recent Wall Street Journal report, is currently charging people $6,500 for a spot aboard his chartered plane out of Kabul. So he's got planes, and he says, well, I mean, you know, you can get out of Afghanistan, and we'll even help you, but it's going to cost you. Well, that's just what we need. Another war criminal mercenary capitalizing on tragedy, which is, and of course, essentially to do what is I think essentially human smuggling. They're going to smuggle these people out of the country, essentially. I mean, how is that all that much different from what the coyotes are getting paid for to bring people across the border to America and getting people out of a terrible situation? Maybe, I don't know, prioritization. Oh, well, if you can pay, then we'll get you out. And no doubt that there's a lot of problems getting people out of Afghanistan. I mean, the administration, of course, is doing what they can with a terrible, shitty situation, a situation that, unfortunately, they did not plan for, did not plan very well. And if you want to cast some blame on that as well, that is totally fair. Again, a terrible situation. But here you have somebody coming in and saying, oh, no, I've got resources. I can come and get people out, but I have to make a profit. Great. So now, of course, the question is, what happens if you can't pay? You can't afford it? Well, then you're likely dead. Again, the Taliban, what they've been doing in recent days they have been targeting journalists, activists, and their families, setting up checkpoints and beating people who try to escape Kabul. And now they're telling mainly Afghans, oh, no, we don't want you to go. Oh, what's the matter? I thought everybody wanted to live under your stupid rules, under your Sharia law. I thought it was great. Well, if it's so great, why doesn't everybody want to escape? Turns out maybe it's not so good. And people hate you and don't want to live under your shit rules, your fundamentalism. But anyway, they're going after, like I said, they're going after people who the new government might not approve of. And, thanks to our mistakes, they have the biometric data for people who helped the United States. So, fantastic. Great. So now, those people will absolutely not survive unless they get out. And so this sick fucker comes in and he says, oh, well, I can save you, your money or your life. I can get you out, though. It's disgusting. There's bad people all around. Obviously, the Taliban is horrible for what they're doing. And so is this guy for going in and trying to make money off the entire situation. Again, disgusting, right? And I wasn't going to bring up this point earlier because this is somebody that I don't really care for. But you know who's been chartering flights out of Afghanistan for free? Hillary fucking Clinton. Thanks a lot, Erik Prince. You made me say something positive about Hillary Clinton. I will never forgive you. This is personal now. Fucking personal. Ugh. Hate it. And the thing is, we don't know about it. We didn't know about it until someone else brought it up. She didn't bring it up. She's not talking about this. She's just been quietly doing this to get people out of Afghanistan. Well, that's good. I mean, that's good. I can't really criticize that. And I don't want to because it's actually the right thing to do, unlike what Erik Prince is freaking doing. Disgusting person. Disgusting. Bad people. All right. There's more. As Mother Jones noted, Prince's plans come amid a broader effort by aid organizations to rescue as many people as possible as the U.S. struggles to process visas and evacuate both Americans still in the country and tens of thousands of Afghans who worked from the U.S. government over the past 20 years of war. As the journal notes, most of these campaigns are driven by genuine empathy for Afghan friends and colleagues desperate to escape the Taliban's imminent takeover. Yeah, again, that's just what I mentioned. There's a lot of different groups that are chartering planes to get people out of there, and they're not charging people $6,500 a head for them to go. However, Prince's attempt to turn this into a profitable venture, of course, fits into his machinations to privatize every little bit to squeeze as much profit out of these wars as possible. These forever wars, which, by the way, he was a part of back in not only Afghanistan, of course, but also in Iraq. But understand, this is what Erik Prince has always done. At one point during the Trump administration, Steve Bannon, back when he was chief of staff. Ugh, those were weird days. Also, the former brother of former Trump Education Secretary Betsy DeVos came up with a plan to replace U.S. troops in Afghanistan with Blackwater mercenaries. Blackwater mercenaries. Well, of course, they had to change their name after those same mercenaries killed 17 innocent civilians in Iraq and did war crimes, to which he did not get in trouble for. And I think that's insane. He should be in prison for that. But thankfully, that privatization did not happen. And that is good. But in 2017, Prince also proposed plundering Helmand province of approximately $1 trillion worth of lithium, uranium, phosphorus, and other rare elements. Those rare elements that, by the way, you have mainstream media, CNN, talking about, and all the capitalists that are sitting there, drooling over like, oh my God, why can't we just go back into war so we can plunder them? We want to plunder that booty. Well, they do. They do, and they were really open about that. Not only that, but Prince had also overseen during the Trump administration operations to spy on Trump enemies in the government and faced accusations of breaking arms embargoes in Somalia and in Libya, and has denied allegations of setting up a back-channel communications line with the Russian government. And so understand, like, Erik Prince, gross person, terrible human being, always happy to profit off war and tragedy, and is a true bottom feeder, and another reason of many that we need to absolutely tear down the entire military-industrial complex. All right. Moving on. So another story, the next story is not going to be fun. In fact, the next few stories are not going to be fun, but it's important that we do them. We got more anti-vaxxers. Here we go. As the Delta variant of the COVID-19 continues in places where vaccination rates remain low, a lot of people are still wondering why there are people that are even refusing to take this free vaccine that has just been approved by the FDA. I mean, if anything, this really does make the case that, it looks like the government can provide health services for free. Why don't we expand that to do things like Medicare to everybody? That said, there are a lot of people, Republicans mainly, that have decided that they would not take this free vaccine. And so Alexander Stockton, who was a reporter for the New York Times, decided to go to these places and ask people. So let's take a look at some of that report.
You're talking about an unproven, untested vaccine that doesn't even seem to really protect people, because people who've gotten the vaccine are getting sick.
I went to one of the places with the worst vaccination rate.
I don't want a poison forced into me.
I'm tired of y'all trying to control us.
One of the best things we have is our own God-given natural antibodies.
It also has one of the worst COVID case rates in the country, the Ozarks.
I don't take the flu shot. I don't take the pneumonia shot. I don't take any of them.
I wanted to find out why residents here aren't getting vaccinated.
You're trying to mask these kids up. It's detrimental to their health.
And what, if anything, could convince them otherwise?
I heard you had kind of a rough night last night.
Christopher Green is 53 years old and fighting for his life. Like 90% of the patients in this packed hospital, he's unvaccinated.
I don't expect him to get out of this without being on a ventilator, and if he has to be on a ventilator, I don't expect him to survive.
I immediately asked Christopher, why hadn't he gotten the vaccine?
I'm more of a libertarian, and I don't like being told what I have to do. still not completely 100% sold on the inoculation.
It was eerie to hear Christopher insist on his individual freedoms, even as he struggled to breathe.
Do you think other people should get it? I mean, I think that's everybody's individual right or choice to do what they want to.
I'm more of a libertarian. I don't like being told what to do, so I guess I'll just die. And he did, by the way. Look, that's not being libertarian, okay? That's just being stupid, plain old stupid. I actually know plenty of people who consider themselves to be libertarian who have gotten the vaccine. Hell, you have anarchists that have taken the vaccine. I mean, it's not a measure. Understand that vaccines should not be a measure of your political alignment. It should be a measure of whether or not you value your own life enough to put the trust in science. And that's ultimately what it is. And these people, obviously, they don't trust it. They don't believe it. They have no use for it. You saw earlier, my own natural antibodies. Well, what do you think the COVID-19 vaccine does? It helps you create the antibodies by not giving you a live, strong virus. That's to boost your own immune system. Again, there's so much disinformation where people do not know how this actually works. And of course, those same people are the ones who are suffering the most. As I mentioned, Green died about 9 days after that interview. She said, look, if he goes on a ventilator, he ain't coming back out. And that's true. That's exactly what happened. But hey, he sure showed us. He showed the libs. He showed the commies by dying. Because he believes in freedom. But here's the thing, right? So I don't like that, freedom. I like that argument. Why? Because this is not about you. This is not about you. When you get COVID-19, understand that you're not an island, okay? You go to the hospital, you use up hospital resources. You use up the nurses and doctors' time. So they're not able to see other patients who don't have COVID-19. People that need elective surgery, people that are undergoing things that destroy your immune system, like, for example, cancer treatments. They can't go and get those because you are hogging up the resources while sitting in the hospital. And more importantly, by the way, you are exposing people to COVID-19 who then may also get sick and might end up also in the hospital too. And that is the problem. If it was just you, hey, look, you're a libertarian, you want to sit in your house, you want to smoke 14 packs a day, you want to drink yourself into a coma, that's on you, bro. Go ahead and knock yourself out. Just stay off the public road, keep your secondhand smoke to yourself, and I don't give a goddamn what you do. And that is freedom. That is freedom. But understand that once you endanger the public with your personal choices, that's when your freedom stops. When you infringe on mine, all right? Your freedom stops when you infringe on my freedom to live. Don't fucking tread on me, bro. And that's exactly what the anti-vaxxers are doing. And that's why it pisses me off. They have prevented us from getting back to any sort of semblance of normal by prolonging this crisis, this virus, because they refuse to believe in living in a goddamn society, despite, of course, benefiting from society and refusing to do the bare minimum to give back to that society. Most of these people would never last a minute on their own without a government, without a society. No infrastructure, no power lines, no roads, no gas stations. Oh, you want gas? Go pump your own goddamn oil right out of the ground and then turn into gasoline. Good luck fighting a corporation for that. But oh, wait, you also need you might have to use that gas, like you're getting the gas to fill your car up, right? Well, what if you don't have a car? You're gonna build your own? You're gonna buy it from somebody else? Well, without regulations, how do you know that vehicle is going to be safe or won't explode without regulations and rules? And look, I'm using a pretty broad metaphor, obviously, but think of it this way. Government is the bones of a society. Okay? It's the bones. It's the framework. And understand that if that frame is broken or it's not sturdy, then it collapses in on itself. And when that happens, lots of people get hurt, lots of people die. Okay? They starve or fight each other for resources. There's lawlessness, crime, rapes, murders, no firefighters to stop fires. Remember, back in the past, we didn't have firefighters. You know what happened? Fire starts in one person's house, it burns down the entire neighborhood. Now, it didn't used to be a problem if you had a sole cabin in the woods sitting by yourself, right? Sure. But people, again, congregated in communities, built cities for industry. So it wasn't that agrarian way of life anymore. Now you had cities, now you had places that were really focuses of society, of higher industry, where the jobs were at. And so that's when you needed to have central government. That's why you needed to have some sort of central planning in order to make sure that you had services like fire and police so that your house does not burn down the entire fucking neighborhood if you accidentally leave your cigarette butt and don't put it in the tray. All right? Or you leave your fucking stove on. We need these things. We need these things. You have to have a society. You have to have a government, a framework for things to actually work. Think about it this way. Without the framework of government and society, we wouldn't have a hospital system. And people would be dying, choking alone inside their little shitty cabin. That's why sometimes we have to do the things that we don't want to do. You think I wanted to lock down? You think I want to wear a mask everywhere I go? No, we don't want to do those things, but we have to. We have to because we make the choice to live in a society and to protect each other and our own communities. And we need that society to continue to function. And you can't really function well as a society when a bunch of people are getting sick and dying from a virus. And look, at the beginning of this pandemic, I get it. We didn't have any cures. We didn't have any effective treatments. We didn't have a vaccine. So there were things that we had to do. And I can understand the frustration of not being able to go out and do the things that you love or losing your income because you can't go to work now. And the federal government did drop the ball on that response in helping people be able to stay home. Now there's a vaccine. Now there's no excuse. Now there's no excuse not to get it. Now there's no excuse to be clogging up the hospitals. Absolutely no fucking excuse. None. None. Again, getting vaccinated so you, A, do not spread the virus around like fucking candy, okay? And B, letting a nice new variant incubate in your body and then releasing it onto the rest of the country is a bare minimum. The bare minimum of what you should do, okay? Get the vaccine so you don't do any of that. Now, let's get back to the Ozarks. The COVID-19 vaccine rate is so low in Mountain Home, Arkansas, Stockton reports that at a local hospital, Baxter Regional Medical Center, only half of the medical staff has been vaccinated. These are people that work in the medical field and yet refuse to get vaccinated. They're supposed to know better. They're supposed to know better. A nurse working in that hospital, interviewed by Stockton, said, quote, "There are just a lot of people that you cannot convince to get vaccinated. Patients, employees. It's very frustrating." Understand that, and what we've seen earlier, this is why we're not going to be done with this. And it gets even worse when you put it in the context of the world. Because think about it, right? Look, we don't get a lot of foreign policy. We don't get a lot of foreign news. Most Americans don't give a shit, unfortunately, about that as a society. Generally, we don't care about other countries. And, you know, we should. We should. We should actually be striving for a more global socialist movement. But, you know, when you look at the world, the developing world, and you look at the vaccine, right? They don't have the vaccine like we do. They don't have the amount that we do. We have it. You know why? Because we hoard the vaccine. And yet, while we're hoarding the vaccine, there are a big chunk of people in this country that have decided they would rather not take it. They refuse to take it. We are literally swimming in vaccine that people are dying in other countries to get their hands on. And yet these idiots say, nope. No, I'm not going to do it. Freedom. Get freedom. Freedom. I'd rather take horse paste or whatever Alex Jones or insert podcaster name tells me to take on the TV or on the internets. And they do this with no sense of irony at all, calling everyone else sheep while taking dewormer because somebody online told them that you should take that, and don't realize that they have this weird parasocial relationship with said podcaster or whatever based on clicks and views. No. And look, it sucks pointing this out. It's not profitable. It's not good. I'd rather not talk about it. I'd rather not have to show these videos. I'd rather dunk on Kayleigh McEnany or Dave Rubin for being stupid. Instead, I got to use my platform to push back on nonsense because I feel like I have a responsibility to do that. I got to push back on the conspiracies. Okay? I got to urge people to trust in the science. I know. The wood science bad. Oh. No, look, you got to do the right thing to protect yourself and the community. But unfortunately, as I mentioned, we run into two different problems. You got conspiracy theorists, for one, as I just mentioned, and then you got the ultra freedom people. And there happens to be a lot of overlap between the two. And they are numerous, and they are very irresponsible. They are getting people hurt and killed, like this guy in the video, unfortunately. He died as a result of this. It is frustrating because I am a person that needs, that has empathy, okay? I have empathy, and I want to help people do the right thing by informing them as much as I'm able to, as much as I can. Even so, you get to a point where you run out, where you can no longer mentally afford to give empathy to people who are so stuck in their ways that they are literally killing themselves for the cause, needlessly. And so, unfortunately, I and people like myself, we need to learn to accept that no matter what we do, you just can't save them all. All right. Oh, this hour's been going by. More stuff. Millions of Americans across the country have been facing mounting rent and the possibility of eviction as a result of the COVID-19 pandemic. Now, there was a previous moratorium in place that had expired. However, President Joe Biden had extended that moratorium in a limited basis till about October 3rd, but only to places with high cases of COVID-19 and COVID-19 transmissibility. So now, of course, the entire point of the moratorium was to make sure that the $46 billion in federal rent assistance and aid reached the 11.4 million people who are currently behind on rent. So now what's the update to this? Well, apparently that money, a lot of it, most of it, has not reached the people who need it most. And so this is according to an analysis by Huffington Post. And so they report that much of the $46 billion allocated from the two different coronavirus relief bills have not been spent. So now this was released in two different tranches. One is $25 billion. And so of that, state and local governments have only spent about $5.1 billion on rental relief. So there's a lot of failure here. So we're going to look into what happened. Where did the money go? Why is it not going out? So for one, let's look at the obvious method of delivery, right? So the method of delivery that would be the most effective is to use a federal program. They did not go with that direction. They did not go in that direction to create a federal program or office or agency to disperse that money. Instead, we end up relying on state and local governments, a lot of them, of course, which are Republican controlled, to give out the funds. As you can see, this has been a complete and utter disaster. HuffPost found that roughly 60 areas had sent out $0 in federal rental assistance to the end of June. So now I mentioned Republicans, but in reality, this is a bipartisan problem. because it turns out the states that did the worst were liberal states. In fact, you had New York, which was sitting on $801 million of rental relief, and the territory of Puerto Rico, which was afforded $325 million in relief funds to distribute, and they have distributed roughly nothing. Well, at least back in June. So now they're starting to disperse money, and I'll get to that. Now, some areas that had started their programs have also seen problems. See, even when they started those rent relief programs, turns out you had a lot of bureaucracy and a lot of paperwork getting in the way. As I mentioned, New York has dispersed about $186 million. Puerto Rico has dispersed nothing. And of course, again, that is an absolute failure. But once again, I also mentioned that they do not deserve all the blame. The federal government, I mean. The state governments do deserve a lot of blame. Because, again, if it had been federal, they would have set up a program. States have just dropped the ball. In a lot of states where the programs were up and running, applicants often faced confusing paperwork requirements and a lot of means testing. The Treasury Department, however, knows about this and has urged local governments to ditch excessive paperwork and take renters at their word that they are facing financial hardship. Instead of making, of course, gather documents such as court filings, pay stubs, and bank statements to prove that they are truly in need of this assistance. They said, and this is a department quote, "The use of self-attestation for documenting household eligibility clearly speeds up the processing of applications for rental assistance." But again, it's not just paperwork that's the problem. In some areas, they have not even begun the program. Jersey City, New Jersey, for example, didn't even open its application process until August 17th. So we have been facing this issue for quite some time, 8 months. Okay? The whole specter of the rent-pocalypse, of these renters not being able to pay what they owe, okay? To pay their, to stay in their homes. We've known about this for a long time. And yet Jersey City is like, we're just going to sit there and fuck around for all this time. What are you doing? What are you doing? Now, the city, when asked, could not specify why it had taken so long to actually start that program. Gee, I wonder why. Maybe because they don't actually have a reason. All right. Now, there's another problem too. Okay, an even bigger problem than just the end of the moratorium that is coming soon on October 3rd. Turns out that there's a rule that if states don't use, or states and cities, that do not use 65% of their allocated funds by the end of September, the federal government can take the money back. On Wednesday, the Treasury Department said that programs that are unwilling or unable to deliver assistance quickly were at risk of losing their money, their funding. So you might want to get on it. Step on it. Now, interestingly enough, I mentioned New York, I mentioned New Jersey, or at least a city in New Jersey. There is one state that is actually doing a pretty good job of getting out this money, and it's not one that you would actually expect. This is not the first state that you would think is actually doing really good at dispersing federal aid. It's Texas. It's not New York, not Illinois, not big liberal states, but you have Texas. Now, I think there's an interesting reason for this, okay? More so than conservatives, I have noticed that liberals love to do excessive means testing. I know. And of course, with the increased means testing, there's a certain level of bureaucracy to go through. And let me give you an example. So one of the big differences between Trump's stimulus check and Joe Biden's, look, Biden's did give more money, $1,400. It wasn't a $2,000 that was promised, but it was bigger than the Trump $1,200 check. Now, there's a big difference, right? So Trump's check actually went to more people. So it was a little bit more universal, right? And there, of course, were still means tests on it, but the second check actually had more means tests on it, meaning, yes, it was more money, but it actually went out to fewer and fewer people. And so Biden's, as I said, much more targeted. And of course, when you target more, and this is the point, when you target more, it takes longer to get to the people who need it. Now, if you just send out checks to everybody, which is where the progressive position is, okay, and even some of the moderates, I remember Tim Ryan putting out a bill saying, let's just give everybody $2,000 and let's do it monthly. Well, if you do that, it gets to more people, it gets there faster, and it has a more immediate effect. And I think they could have actually done this when it came to the rental issue. Did a federal program, created a federal program to disperse the money and sent it universally. Or at least made it much less stringent for people to go and prove that they're in dire straits. And so now, of course, the immediate argument against that by a lot of people that are clutching pearls, oh, we don't want rich people to get money that they don't need. Okay, but for me, I think, who cares? Now, wait a minute. You're saying you want rich people to get free money? No, what I'm saying is that you disperse the money to everybody, and then you tax rich people back later. Or you generally just raise their taxes, and that's it. You ensure that they make they pay their fair share, and you also ensure by doing this universally that it doesn't get taken away. And two, you can then justify increased taxes on wealthy individuals to then pay for those programs. It's just more efficient. It works better. And again, taxing them back later is just a better way to do things. The micro-targeting, the means testing BS, it just wastes time that we do not have. And if somebody gets money that they didn't actually need, well, again, there are enforcement mechanisms that you can come after them later in order to recoup that money. Stop putting hurdles into aid that is legitimately needed. And this, again, is a problem mainly we see from establishment liberals. Not progressives, but establishment liberals. That said, this doesn't mean I'm praising Donald Trump or conservatives. No, conservatives hate when poor people get money. And more often than not, when they do help poor people, it's because that's a side effect of them helping the rich. So let's be fair about that. Let's not be confused about who wants to help who. Look, the main reason that the Trump administration had even sent out stimulus checks is because the donors demanded it. The donors understand during the COVID-19 lockdowns, the donors said, hey, people have to have money to buy our shit. Okay? So we give them a stimulus check so they can survive and buy our stuff. Whereas now, of course, conservatives are against more checks. They're against the moratorium, of course, because, well, their donors see no interest in giving poor people money now. They would rather send people back, send the kids back into school, masks or not, COVID or not, doesn't matter. You send the kids back to school so you can send the parents back to work so they can go make money for the capitalists and then consume. And that's what it's about. So understand the donors really are driving that conversation. Now on this, well, there are also donor interests involved. On the moratorium, you have real estate interests, real estate groups. And so, in fact, those real estate interests are still fighting against this moratorium, even as this money gets held up. Last Friday, a group of landlords had filed a request with Chief Justice John Roberts in order to block the temporary eviction ban. Earlier that day, the U.S. Court of Appeals for the D.C. Circuit left in place a previous court order that allowed the moratorium to continue. A ruling is expected on that, actually soon. News of the latest eviction moratorium just days after the previous one had expired was whiplash, according to Greg Brown, Senior Vice President of Government Affairs for the National Apartment Association, an industry group of property owners. So, it's whiplash for landlords. How dare you take away that eviction moratorium? Or I'm sorry, put it back into place after we got it taken away. Jesus. And see, understand this is why these two issues are so intertwined. Okay? Because we need the moratorium because the federal government and the states dropped the ball. They failed to get that money out in time to avoid the crisis. State governments and localities need to get their act together. Why? Because this is going to be more dire than just a few landlords not getting their money, or at least not getting their money in a timely manner. It's going to end up being a disaster. Once that emergency moratorium is lifted or struck down by the courts, whichever happens first, you're going to see a homelessness crisis unlike what we've ever seen before. And by the way, with all those people homeless, who do you think is going to go and occupy those homes and rent those homes once you've kicked people out? So either way, something has to give here. And more importantly, you've got to get that money out to the people who need it right away, as soon as you can, without any questions. Tick tock, tick tock. The clock is ticking, and they better get on it. They got to get on it. Okay. I think we're going to have to save the Grifter fight till tomorrow. I'm out of time. I know. Sucks, but I got to get some stuff. Got to get stuff done. It's okay. They can use those empty properties for money laundering. They'll always figure it out. Life finds a way, or I should say greed finds a way. Let's see. So let's go here before read some super chats if we have any. We didn't go 45 points out that Puerto Rico cannot vote for Trump. So that's why Donald Trump didn't give a damn about Puerto Rico. And of course, there is the casual racism as well. So, have you liked the stream? Yes, Weird Pirates. Hi all, I'm only an hour late. Did I miss anything? Just, only the entire show. You need to put that on some merchandise. Greed finds a way. Yeah, but I would think that I was in favor of greed. Endorsing greed. Or, of course, you could have, like, a giant, like, the bowl in front of, Wall Street. In the place of, like, the dinosaur in Jurassic Park eating the guy in the toilet. I mean, that would work. Damn, you're giving me ideas that I have absolutely no artistic abilities to make reality. God damn it. What are you doing to me? You are giving me ideas that I cannot do. Or Trump hatching from an egg. Oh, Jesus. See, that's another one. That's another one. God damn. Y'all are killing me. All right. But with goodness. All right. Nothing here on Twitch, by the way. But hey, if you support the show, please subscribe on Twitch or become a patron. It's patreon.com/Waldorf. Jeff Waldorf. You can also, oh, thank you, Renee Dupay. Hopefully I said your name right. I am the butcher of names, but thank you for that very kind $10. I really appreciate that. So, how come the Taliban is now the 12th best armed military in the world with skids of $100 US $100 bills? Yeah. Yeah, that's a bit of a mess up from both administrations. Again, Donald Trump putting him in a pretty good position before he left office, drawing down troops to 2,500, and then of course, doing the peace talks with Taliban, which I didn't actually oppose, and then of course, the Afghan military. The whole point, though, is that we shouldn't have even been there in the first place. Shouldn't have been there in the first place because it's an absolute boondoggle for the American people. And so, yeah, I'll agree that the way that this entire thing went down, let me tell you, Barbara Lee was the only person that was correct and made the correct vote on Afghanistan, on the use of military force. Everyone else completely dropped the ball. Everyone dropped the ball. And I actually do agree with Trump that we didn't belong there. All right. Anyway, let's see. Oh, hey, by the way, thank you, Rialan N, for that very kind donation as well. You are awesome. And Crazy Hawaiian PA, thank you for gifting a tier 1 sub. I do appreciate that. All right. And hey, Lee Spanner, thank you thank you for becoming a supporter as well on hitting the join button on YouTube to become a member. You're all incredibly kind, and I do really appreciate that. So, with that said, I gotta go. Tomorrow, good show. Have a great show, actually. And we are going to, Dave Schmidt, 311 giving out a community tier 1 community sub. You're all awesome. We're gonna have a great show tomorrow, and of course, tune in afterwards on the TYT Twitch channel for my first appearance on Reactions with Ravana. So it's gonna be fun. All right, thank you all. I'm gonna raid into somebody. Let's raid into. Let's raid into left flank vets. I gotta get more people, of course, to raid in as well. So let's do that. Start that raid. To everyone else on the YouTubes and on the Facebooks, thank you for tuning in. Love you all. And remember, change begins with you. Good night, nation. See y'all later. Have a good night.
Please clap.
Dumps.
They're kicking me out the door. They're kicking me out the door.